You followed the script. You obeyed the rules. You walked through life thinking fairness was currency and kindness was armor. You kept your head down, stayed loyal, gave more than you took. You were patient when they provoked you. You were soft where they were sharp. You trusted that being good would protect you. But what did it buy you? Nothing but betrayal in silence, powerlessness in plain sight. The world didn't reward your obedience. It ignored it. The world doesn't kneel to kindness. It feeds on it. They didn't see your restraint as wisdom. They saw it as weakness. They didn't see your loyalty as strength. They saw it as leverage. You tried to live like a man, honest, honorable, accountable. But men break, every day. What survives isn't the one who plays fair. What survives is something colder, something no longer moved by applause or torn apart by rejection, something untouchable. And that moment, the one where your heart goes quiet and your mind takes the throne, that's the moment you're reborn, not into divinity, but into domination. You stop trying to be good. You start being inevitable. You stop asking why they crossed you. You start making sure they never dare again. This is what Machiavelli called God mode. It's not rage. It's not revenge. It's control, pure, precise, and merciless. No more hesitation. No more guilt. No more explaining your motives to people who weaponize your transparency. You don't seek to be understood. You become incomprehensible. You don't walk into rooms hoping to be welcomed. You walk in and alter the temperature. Your presence becomes an atmosphere. You no longer chase. You no longer ask. You no longer fold. You don't adapt to the world. You bend it. And the first step is annihilation. Not of your enemies, but of the version of you that needed to be seen. Because that's the first weakness they exploit. Your hunger for recognition, your desire to be praised, noticed, celebrated. That's their entry point. And as long as you seek applause, you'll betray your strategy. You'll speak when you should be silent. You'll show your cards to prove your worth. You'll crave validation from the very hands that would strangle you if they had the chance. Power doesn't live in visibility. It lives in shadows. It grows in silence, and it feeds on detachment. You begin to move like a ghost. Your steps no longer echo. You operate behind walls no one can see through. You do not seek credit. You seek control, quietly, strategically, indifferently. You don't need the world to clap. You need the world to yield. God mode begins with psychological invisibility. You're not here to be loved. You're here to be undeniable. And that doesn't come from emotion. It comes from outcome. The more invisible your intent, the more dangerous your effect. And the next transformation is subtle, but nuclear. You stop trying to be liked. You stop measuring your power through smiles and compliments. Instead, you measure it by what shifts in your silence. The game isn't about noise, it's about presence. The kind that makes people hesitate when they speak. The kind that makes them calculate before they act. The kind that makes them sweat when your name is mentioned. You don't instill fear through threats. You install it like a program, quietly, methodically. You train the room to adjust around you without you lifting a finger. Fear becomes your currency. Not chaos, not cruelty. Controlled fear, the type that triggers obedience, not rebellion. You're not looking to be hated. You're not looking to be loved. You want their nervous system to flinch when you lock eyes. That's control. You start conditioning them with unpredictability. Predictable men are easy to manipulate. You break that cycle. You don't respond on cue. You don't smile on command. You don't react when provoked. You calculate your silence. You withhold your approval. You make them guess. Make them question. Let them wonder if they've crossed a line, even when you say nothing. That hesitation becomes the leash. But there's more. Once in a while, just enough to be remembered, you respond disproportionately. You let the calm dominate 95% of the time, but that 5%, when activated, becomes unforgettable. You don't explode, you execute, quietly, clinically. The consequence comes cold and final. A closed door, a revoked opportunity, a removed presence. No drama, just a new reality. And once they see what it means to cross you, they won't need a reminder. You'll live in their calculations from that point forward. Then, you vanish. Not as an escape, but as a weapon. Your absence becomes louder than your presence ever was. People use visibility to feel important. You use withdrawal to build tension. They expect you to react. You don't. They expect closure. You give them echoes. Conversations left unfinished. Messages left unread. Questions left to rot in their own silence. Now, your influence multiplies. Not because you said anything, but because they're still thinking about what you didn't say. This is the shift. You no longer seek to dominate people directly. You dominate their attention, their anticipation, their uncertainty. And that control is impossible to fake. It only comes when you've severed the final chain, your addiction to emotion. As long as emotion rules your reactions, you're readable. As long as guilt or pride determines your speech, you're vulnerable. You can't command from a place of impulse. You can't lead while chasing fairness. Fairness is for the weak. The powerful seek leverage, not justice. Machiavelli understood this. Emotion is the leash. Logic is the sword. You're told to follow your heart. That advice builds graves, not empires. A man who acts on emotion is a man who bleeds on command. You feel everything, but act on nothing. You smile while being betrayed. You speak only when the silence benefits you. You don't correct falsehoods. You let the lies rot in the mouth that spoke them. You let time validate the truth while you climb. You will be called cold. You will be called ruthless. But they will also call you when they need you, because they will know you don't flinch. They will know you don't run. They will know that behind your quiet is a strategy so sharp it cuts through manipulation before it's even fully formed. You've stopped bleeding in public. You've stopped offering your peace to those who gamble with it. You don't crave understanding. You create consequence. You don't beg for peace. You command presence. And once this level is activated, there's no turning back. You've stepped out of the role of the obedient man. You've become the architect of your own domain. You no longer seek to be part of the crowd. You watch the crowd. You influence the crowd. You never need to announce your return. Your absence did the work for you. They feel your silence like gravity now, pulling, shifting, suffocating. This is not about revenge. This is about evolution. You don't destroy them. You transcend them. You don't prove your worth. You embody it. And they can sense it, even when they can't describe it. Especially when they can't describe it. You've detached from emotion. You've severed the need to be understood. You've risen above the system they use to trap ordinary men. You are no longer ordinary. You are the shadow that bends the room. You are the force that can't be explained. You are no longer playing the game. You are the game. Now you move with precision, not speed, not desperation, just clarity so sharp it slices through the noise of lesser minds. You are no longer performing. You're programming. You're not asking for trust. You're cultivating doubt in them. Doubt about their own position, their own power, their own safety in your presence. And all of it is achieved without threats, without theatrics, only with silence, absence, and deliberate indifference. That's what separates the dominant from the desperate. Desperate men need to explain, need to correct the record, need to be heard. You've buried that impulse. You don't correct lies. You don't defend against slander. You don't argue about fairness, because you know what Machiavelli knew. The man who explains himself has already lost the frame. The man who speaks last has the weakest position. So you remain still. While others shout, you stare. While others gesture, you vanish. And in doing so, you reprogram their expectations. Now your silence is no longer neutral. It's loaded. It means something. It's a signal, a warning, a shift in power. The room changes when you enter it, not because of your noise, but because of your mystery. They don't know what you'll say. They don't know what you'll do. They only know that when you move, something irreversible happens. That's power. Not the power of control, but of consequence. You don't bark orders. You don't demand loyalty. You simply become the kind of man people cannot afford to offend. Not because you'll retaliate, but because your absence is more terrifying than your presence. You build this edge through repetition, through restraint, through denying your emotions the right to lead. You feel everything, but no one can see it. That's where the intimidation begins. The man who reacts emotionally can be measured, baited, pushed. But you're the question that has no answer. The variable that cannot be anticipated. You've become clinical, observant, unreadable. And the more unreadable you are, the more power you hold. Because when they can't define you, they fear what you might be. You've now reached the point where your influence begins long before you speak. They rehearse what they'll say before you arrive. They adjust their tone. They watch your face for clues. They speak in careful terms, not because you've told them to, but because your presence conditions it. They feel the consequence of disappointing you without you ever stating the terms. That's God mode. You no longer set the rules. You are the rule. And here's the paradox. The more detached you appear, the more they attach meaning to your every movement. Your approval becomes rare, so they chase it. Your attention becomes minimal, so they crave it. Your feedback becomes sacred, so they analyze every word. That's the leverage. You don't dominate by force, you dominate by scarcity. You've become a luxury they can't afford to lose, a presence that rewrites the hierarchy without ever lifting your voice. And still, you give them nothing to grip. You remain polite, professional, even generous. But with one key difference. You never let them in. They will say you are calm, wise, insightful. But they'll never say they understand you. Because you never give them enough to form a full picture. You don't expose your pain. You don't express your hopes. You don't reveal your strategy. You are the shadow behind the throne. The architect whose fingerprints are nowhere yet, whose design is everywhere. This is how legends are born, not by demanding recognition, but by becoming essential in silence. Others will talk. Others will claim credit. Let them. You don't compete in the arena. You design it. You don't ask for influence. You manufacture outcomes. You don't need to be seen. You only need to be felt. And when you are felt consistently enough, you become a force they build their lives around without even knowing it. Now comes the real test. Now that you've detached from emotion, mastered invisibility, and built a presence that cannot be challenged, what happens when the rewards arrive? When they begin to praise you? When they ask for your input? When they try to draw you back into the world you once tried to escape? This is where most men fail. They rise into power only to kneel again for approval. They want to be admired. They want to be loved. They want to feel understood. And that want becomes the seed of their downfall. Not you. You've burned that need out of your system. You no longer care to be celebrated, because you understand that power is fragile the moment it becomes visible. The moment they feel they have access to your heart, they will use it. The moment they believe they understand you, they will stop fearing you. That's why your most valuable asset isn't strength, it's distance. They will try to study you, try to humanize you, try to turn you into something they can explain to themselves. That's why you never allow clarity. You leave fragments, pieces, rumors, myths. A quote here, a decision there, but never the full picture. Because when the story is incomplete, imagination fills in the rest. And imagination is always more powerful than truth. You've become more than a person. You've become a question they can't stop asking. They mention your name, with respect now, not because they know what you'll do, but because they don't. You've built a reputation they fear damaging, a mystery they fear unraveling, and the more they project onto you, the more power you inherit. Because they are no longer responding to you, they are responding to the version of you they've created in their own mind. And that version? That's what you designed all along. So you keep your posture strong, your words minimal, your energy contained. You don't explain. You don't defend. You don't return fire. You simply remain elevated, above conflict, above gossip, above petty rivalry. They try to reach you, and their fingers pass through smoke. You're present, but not tangible. You're visible, but unreachable. And that's when the real fear sets in. Not the fear of what you'll do, but the fear that they'll never be able to match you, never be able to predict you, never be able to break you. That's the final evolution. You don't just win. You become the standard by which all others are measured and fall short. Your legend is not built on presence. It's built on the absence that speaks louder than any scream, the restraint that echoes louder than any attack, the stillness that makes entire rooms recalibrate. You've mastered the game not by playing harder, but by changing the game itself. You don't beg. You don't explain. You don't perform. You become the gravity that everything else moves around. And while they're still trying to understand how you did it, you've already moved again, higher, further, deeper into silence. You no longer occupy space the way others do. You haunt it, not with menace, but with presence, not with noise, but with consequence. They speak your name in lowered tones. They prepare for your opinion without knowing if it will ever come. They shift their strategies around your absence. And when they don't hear from you, they assume you're thinking. When you say nothing, they assume you know something. That's what happens when your persona becomes untouchable. You stop reacting. You stop proving. You stop correcting the narratives. Because the truth doesn't need to defend itself. It just survives. Machiavelli would tell you this: the most dangerous man is the one who no longer needs to be understood. The one who lives above emotion, beyond approval, outside of reach. The man who doesn't flinch at insult, doesn't react to praise, doesn't answer every knock at the door of his peace. You've become that man, not by abandoning your humanity, but by mastering it. Your emotions still exist. They just serve you now. You feel pain, but it doesn't guide you. You feel anger, but it doesn't steer you. You've taken all those wires that once tangled your decisions and rerouted them into precision. Strategy. Power. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you've grown cold, but you haven't lost your soul. You've stopped selling it. You've stopped placing your worth in the hands of people who only want to break it. You've stopped explaining your character to those who've already made up their minds. You've stopped shrinking to fit rooms too small for your vision. And in doing so, you've created a gravity they can't escape. Now you're tested not by confrontation, but by temptation. The temptation to return to softness, to prove yourself one more time, to give closure to those who never earned it. Don't. That's the final trap. Most men rise only to come back down for a round of applause. They conquer the mountain and then beg the villagers to celebrate them. That is not your path. You didn't climb for recognition. You climbed for perspective. And now that you see the system for what it is, you'll never belong to it again. There is no going back. Once God mode is activated, comfort becomes your enemy. Familiarity becomes a threat. You must remain above it. Because the moment you step down, they will swarm. They will probe for cracks. They will test the silence to see if it was real. They will try to place a leash back on your mind. And you will not let them. Because you have tasted the one thing that cannot be faked: sovereignty. You are not here to be fair. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be untouchable. They must never know exactly how to please you, never know what you truly want, never know if they've won or lost your approval. You will give enough to keep them guessing, never enough to make them certain. Because when they think they know you, they stop fearing you. And fear, when mastered, is not oppression. It's order. Now the mask you wear is not deception. It is protection. It is armor built from silence, distance, and control. Your true thoughts stay buried. Your plans unfold in silence. Your victories arrive without announcements. And the fewer people who understand you, the more invincible you become. They can't attack what they can't locate. They can't manipulate what they can't define. They can't sabotage what they can't predict. You've made yourself untraceable, not just in presence, but in essence. And so you rise, not as a tyrant, not as a savior, but as a phantom of force. No titles, no crowns, just consequence, just gravity. You've become the force behind the frame, the current beneath the surface. You don't demand loyalty. You make betrayal feel impossible. You don't scream to be heard. Your silence does all the speaking. You don't punish with noise. You punish with absence, the kind that empties rooms, the kind that makes people realize what your presence truly meant only after it's gone. You're not feared because you're cruel. You're feared because you're stable, because they know they can't shake you, because they know your world doesn't collapse when you're challenged. It becomes colder, sharper, more precise. The very moment they thought they had power over you, you vanished, and now they feel it. In the silence, in the way you no longer flinch, in the way your eyes no longer blink when they lie to your face, in the way you walk away mid-sentence and never return. This is what legacy looks like, not in the noise of victory, but in the stillness that follows your departure. You become the lesson, the one they can't replicate, the one they can't forget. Not because you demanded attention, but because your absence rewrote the entire script. You are the anomaly they never saw coming and now cannot escape. You are the standard they cannot reach. Not because you're perfect, but because you've mastered what they couldn't, yourself. And now, every time they wonder how to navigate power, they remember you. Not because you shouted, but because you never had to. Not because you threatened, but because you never gave them the chance to test you again. They will tell stories. They will quote you. They will imagine what you would have done. But they will never truly know. That's the price of playing at your level. You no longer belong to them. You belong only to the mission, the design, the legacy. God mode isn't a performance. It's a transformation. It isn't about dominating others. It's about eliminating the parts of yourself that ever needed to. You don't win through control. You win through discipline, through distance, through detachment. They will say you disappeared, but you didn't. You just ascended so far above the game, you no longer needed to touch the pieces. You let the board move around you. And when they ask, how did he do it? There will be no answer, because there wasn't a single move. It was the silence, the distance, the restraint, the refusal to kneel to noise. The discipline to let them talk while you built the empire in shadows. You became the one they can't reach, can't read, and can't replace. You became inevitable, untouchable, unmatched. And the best part, they'll never even see the moment it happened. Only the effects, the aftershocks, the gravity that lingers long after your footsteps vanish. You've entered the final stage. No longer a man, no longer even a presence. You are a force, whispered in halls, feared in silence, respected without explanation. This isn't a role you play, it's who you are now. This is God mode, and once it's awakened, it never sleeps again.